Hello friends, today's recap will spin your head because this wedding doesn't end with I do. It begins with chaos. A billionaire bride is minutes away from marrying into an even bigger empire. Cameras flashing, families smiling, and contracts waiting like chains. She's supposed to be the perfect trophy in a perfect deal. But one unexpected encounter with a broke man, someone with nothing to gain and nothing to hide, shakes her harder than any luxury ever did. In just a few conversations, he says what nobody around her dares to say, and she realizes her dream life is actually a cage. So she does the unthinkable, she runs. What follows is a high-stakes chase through power, money, and manipulation, because rich people don't let their investments disappear. The twist? The broke man isn't as ordinary as he looks. And her escape isn't as random as she believes. Romance, danger, and betrayal collide fast. Don't blink. Let's start, friends. Margot and David, who are living separate lives, are unable to sleep at night. While she bakes muffins, David spends time tending to his plants. Margot's mother, Amparo, also known as Lady Meow, doesn't let her eat the muffins so she can maintain her figure. She also wants to take Margot shopping on a workday. Margot cares more about her presentation and hopes Amparo has kept the party that night as intimate as she wants. The chairman and the board members at Ortega Group keep dismissing Margot's ideas and her marketing plans. David, who is in love with Adoya, is excited for her to meet his friends that night. She pretends she didn't remember anything about the dinner, even if she has canceled on them thrice, and expects his friends to understand. Margot's sisters, Patri and Candela, find her hiding out in the pantry at her own engagement party. She's worried because she and her fiancé, Filippo, wanted an intimate gathering. Margot's family owns the biggest hotel empire in Spain, so her sisters feel that a party with 200 people is still intimate for their mom. An hour later, when Amparo finally finds Margot, and random guests keep congratulating her, she rushes to find some solace in Filippo. David lives on the sofa with his friends, Ivan and Domi, who let him babysit their daughter, Ada. They're disappointed about Adoya ditching them again, but Domi is suspicious about her and thinks she's using David. On her wedding day, while Amparo keeps criticizing Margot's look, her sisters comfort her when she has a panic attack and feels suffocated in her dress. They let her see Filippo, who assures Margot that she's only nervous since it's a big event. Margot doesn't think she can go through with the wedding, but Filippo asks her to think of all the guests outside. He thinks that if Margot just looks into his eyes when she's nervous, he can calm her down. After this, they all leave her alone for a while till she's ready to head out. Meanwhile, Adoya breaks up with David since she feels that he's immature, not earning enough with his many freelance jobs, and needs too much reassurance. As David walks away from Adoya, Margot also gets hold of running shoes and jumps out of her window. She keeps running when Filippo and the others follow her, and successfully escapes her wedding in a golf cart in front of everyone. David feels bad that despite him trying to leave with some dignity, Adoya kisses him goodbye, so she still has the upper hand and can crush him. Filippo is disappointed with Margot for walking out on the wedding, and decides to go to Italy for a while to clear his head. While David tries to process his breakup, Margot's sisters drop by with Patri's 3 kids to cheer her up. At work, Margot's colleagues make fun of the memes circulating about her as the runaway bride. Only Margot's assistant, Sonia, comforts her. David realizes that since he curates flowers suited to particular situations, everyone thinks he's a hopeless romantic. The chairman asks Margot to take a leave from work indefinitely after discussing it with her mother. She wants to get back to work and help promote the brand image, but the chairman thinks that's a terrible idea. He makes her realize that she's the majority shareholder in the company, and her running out on her wedding has already ruined their brand image. To distract Margot, Patri discusses how she thinks her husband, Alberto, is having an affair. Margot doesn't believe it at first, but agrees to investigate the possibility with Patri and Candela. David keeps imagining Adoya by hugging her clothes, but Domi reminds him to help Ivan at the bar. David is sure he's still in love with Adoya, but Ivan makes him realize that he's mostly obsessed. Ivan reminds David that Adoya thinks he's mediocre, a conformist and immature. David still thinks he can win her back by pretending that he's mature and doesn't need constant reassurance. Margot is in the same bar with her sisters. Patri, who is very drunk, tries to flirt with David. He notices how sad Margot looks and gives her water instead of alcohol for a shot, since she seems reluctant to have it. When it's time to leave, Patri drops her phone by mistake while trying to access her bag to pay for the bill. David finds the phone a little later, but the sisters are nowhere to be found by then. David asks Patri to pick up the phone from the bar, but isn't expecting that Margot will come in her place. David heads inside to get the phone around the same time Adoya drops by to pick up her stuff after the breakup from him. Margot suspects that David called Adoya around the same time to make her jealous with Patri, who was supposed to come instead of Margot. Ivan also doesn't deny the theory. When David and Adoya return each other's belongings and she asks him out for a drink, David claims he has a date with Margot at that time. Margot also plays along and randomly shares that they're going on a vacation to Greece. David walks for a while with Margot and gives her his number in case she wants to discuss why they both look so sad. Margot remembers the first time she met Filippo at an event, and he came over to her table to compliment her. In the present, Candela is staying over at Margot's place longer than she's welcome. Patri drags them to meet a detective. Margot still doesn't think that Alberto is cheating on Patri, but she wants to support her. Meanwhile, David praises Margot in front of Ivan and Domi. He can see himself in her since they both seem lost. Now he's just waiting for her to call. Margot tries to take files from the office so she can work secretly. Sonia thinks that's unhealthy and suggests that Margot should take a vacation instead. She asks her to pick a destination randomly on the map without looking and decides to book tickets for her. Margot thinks choosing Greece is a sign. Since she lied to Idoia about going there with David, she finally calls him and discusses how she ran away from her wedding. She shares her feelings, like how she didn't think she was good enough for Filippo. She doesn't let David find out exactly who she is by hiding the newspaper clipping with her details. David seems to understand since he also doesn't feel good enough for Idoia. They decide to help each other feel better and good enough, along with finding ways to make their exes jealous. Margot's sisters find Filippo's photo with 2 beers, which makes Margot think that he's in Italy with another woman. She also discusses this with David and offers to help him get Idoia back. He also decides to help her loosen up so Filippo can find her more attractive. He wants to start by making a list of adventurous things to do while she's in Greece. Meanwhile, Margot helps him with his wardrobe so he can look more mature for Idoia. Margot also promises to take pictures with him so he can post them and make Idoia jealous. Margot gets scared when David randomly takes her to her own hotel's terrace for the picture. She bumps into the manager, Daniel, and pretends she's there from the company to check if things are going fine. Daniel asks the bartender to take care of her. When she orders, David tries to be cool and asks the bartender to charge their drinks to a random room on the 6th floor. When he leaves, Margot assures the bartender that her friend was joking because she knows drinks for her are free and there are only 5 floors in that hotel. She sits on his lap for the perfect picture, and they enjoy wine. Patri calls her sisters to a restaurant to spy on the detective because he hasn't found any dirt on Alberto yet. David and Margot keep talking and take each other's advice on things like music and perfumes. When Alberto wants to stay back and drink with the guys one day, Patri seems more certain that he's cheating on her. Margot informs her sisters about her friendship with David, right after which Filippo texts her to check up on her and claims that he misses her. David encourages her about Filippo's response because Idoia also noticed his post and apparently got jealous enough to inquire about the terrace he was at with Margot. On Domi's insistence, David invites Margot to his place. David and Margot are confused about why his friends and her sisters think something romantic is going on between them. They decide to keep bringing up Filippo and Idoia during dinner so everyone knows they're not together. Margot easily gels with Domi, Ivan, and Ada, and they all enjoy the night getting drunk. When Margot mentions that she's heading to Greece in 2 days, David feels a little upset. Margot thinks she won't have time to meet him before Greece, but asks him to write to her. She stops her taxi midway to ask David to come to Greece with her, since she can pay for his flight. Candela finds David's text about Greece and thinks it will complicate things in the future with Filippo if Margot takes David to Greece. Margot then asks David not to come and heads to the airport alone. Candela doesn't know that Margot already warned David that her sisters might protest about him. She already asked him to turn up at the airport anyway, and he does. David randomly starts noticing Margot's body and feels conscious when he realizes that they're traveling in first class. He tries to offer to pay for their hotel so he doesn't look like a freeloader, but gets scared when they check into a 5-star hotel. Margot assures him that their entire trip is paid for by her company. When David looks around the hotel, it seems like a place he would want to work at. They enjoy Greek food and explore the city, but David keeps trying to figure out what company she works for, which pays so much. Margot claims she's handling the brand image of a company that gave her a tourism project and is completely legitimate. She drags him into the pool with her and claims she doesn't regret inviting a stranger like him to this trip at all. Margot discusses how perfect Filippo was as a boyfriend, which made her always feel like she had to be better. David tries to make her realize that she's incredible with or without Filippo, and that her self-worth shouldn't be dependent on him. When David admits that his relationship with Idoia was mostly casual, Margot notices how unhealthy that sounds. She doesn't think David should get happy with a little bit of validation from a woman who doesn't value him at all and mostly ignores him. David thinks their relationships with their exes are like the destroyed buildings in Athens. They are a mess but still seem beautiful to them. Margot starts noticing David's body too and gets distracted. David gets a message from Idoia, who is jealous of his Greece trip, but Margot just thinks she's reacting because of her ego. Margot thinks about the time Amparo thought she was lucky to have Filippo in her life. Margot texts Filippo to let him know that she's on a trip to Athens. His reply makes him sound patronizing to David. He still toasts to Idoia's ego and Filippo's mansplaining to make Margot feel less upset. Margot almost kisses David in the moment, but she pulls away and reminds him of their trip to Santorini. David keeps getting seasick, and they have an even longer walk to the hotel. It seems worth it in the end because their rooms in the villa have an adjoining terrace with a pool. David jumps in with his clothes on and makes Margot do the same. He reminds her that she needed to be wild on this trip, according to the adventurous list they made. They're almost about to kiss again when Margot gets a call from her sisters, who know that she's with David. Margot assures them that she's fine, but thinks Patri is trying to prove Alberto is cheating on her because it'll be easier to leave him that way. Patri refuses to believe that, but she and Candela get caught by the detective they were spying on again. The detective knows that Patri has been tailing him everywhere and asks for an answer. Margot gets scared of the bike David gets for her since she doesn't know how to ride it. She even rips her dress while getting onto it. She's unable to watch the perfect sunset because of tourists, so David lifts her. She reads a message on his phone about how he finds her beautiful. She then praises him for maturely dealing with Idoia on text. David wonders why Margot hasn't learnt from her wedding that perfect plans don't always work out. He decides they should eat instead, since they can't watch the sunset anyway. On their way, as Margot tries to ride the bike, David tries to hide his boner. When she notices it, he claims he was thinking about Idoia, and it just happened. She laughs with him and promises to get wine so he feels less embarrassed. David admits to Domi that he might like Margot, but she already knows he always has. When Margot gets back, he starts looking at her in a different way. When he admits that he lied about thinking of Idoia earlier, they finally kiss. He takes her to the room where it's clear that they both feel the passion for each other. In the middle of getting intimate, David realizes that Margot has started her period. She thinks of it as a sign that they should stay friends and not complicate their plan of getting back with their exes. David still kisses her and wants to continue, but Margot decides that they should just sleep. The next morning, David admits that he would have kept going if she wanted to. At a secluded beach, David reminds her that they had to skinny dip and takes his clothes off. Margot is giggling when she picks up Candela's call, who is worried about Patri. The detective has refused to investigate Alberto, so Patri wants to find someone else. Margot assures Candela that she will deal with Patri later, and admits that she almost hooked up with David. Candela also doesn't mention that she is sleeping with the detective. Margot joins David and removes all her clothes to enter the sea with him. She feels liberated as he knew she would, and she thanks him for this trip as they continue to have a great time. David wakes Margot up in the morning and asks her to pack for a surprise. He only reveals that they're in Ios Island when he brings her to their humble hotel. It's the only one he could afford, and they're supposed to share a room, but Margot loves it even if it's nothing fancy. When she touches his hair in the car, David wonders if she has been in touch with Filippo. They get into an argument about this topic, especially because David wants to know what she feels about him. When he wonders what will happen to them when they get back to Madrid, she passionately kisses him. They finally agree that they're more than friends, but both of them want to get back to their exes eventually. David then comes up with an expiration date for them, because of which they won't even kiss each other goodbye once they're back in Madrid. They decide to have fun with each other while they're still on this trip and steer clear of lies to not complicate things. They run into Idoia's friend Ruth while Margot is topless. She feels nervous as Ruth discusses how great Idoia and David have always been together. David knows Margot is bothered about what Ruth said, but assures her he still wants to have fun with her. Margot wants to tell him how she's having feelings for him, and just having fun with him isn't enough for her. She lies about it instead and pretends things are fine between them. David quickly changes into the boring shirt she loved under the table so they can continue having fun. As she dances freely like Idoia has never done in front of him, David jokes about falling in love with her. They dance all night and get intimate back in the hotel room. When they miss their boat, they head back to the room to get intimate again before the next ferry. They're having so much fun that Margot happily misses a call from Filippo. Once out of the shower, she feels weird after a text from Filippo admitting that he's missing her and loves her. She lies to David about her sisters checking up on her before they head out to catch the next ferry. David thanks her for giving him the best trip of his life, and they can't keep their hands off each other, even when they reach their next destination. Margot tries to learn more about his life apart from Idoia. They just refuse to head out of their Mykonos hotel since they're so passionate about each other. At night, Margot hears David talking to Idoia about running into Ruth. He assures Idoia that things aren't serious with Margot and claims that he still loves Idoia. Margot feels hurt and texts Filippo that she misses him too. She pretends to be asleep when David gets back to bed. In the morning, she has already booked a day trip for them, even if David wants to stay in bed with her. She keeps acting like a frustrated and angry tourist, forcing David to drag her away. He knows she must have overheard him with Idoia, which is why she's acting strange. Margot claims she's frustrated because he's lying to himself and admits that she heard from Filippo too. When he reminds her that she shouldn't have lied, she asserts that she didn't want to spoil the mood about the romantic text right after they got intimate. She steps away to talk to Candela and finds out that she's sleeping with the detective in her apartment. David and Margot apologize to each other for getting angry, but David doesn't admit he's in love with her. Instead, he pretends he was acting out because he was afraid of losing her friendship. They hold hands and head back home in peace. In the cab on the way to Margot's place, David makes fun of Filippo's secretary setting up an appointment with her assistant to fix a date to meet. They thank each other for the best trip of their lives. Before a final goodbye, David suggests that they can still kiss since the trip isn't over till their suitcases are still out. They can't control themselves anymore and kiss, after which Margot takes him to her apartment. After getting intimate, David and Margot feel like they're two pieces in a puzzle that fit perfectly. They can't get enough of each other till they hear Candela, who comes to check on Margot after her trip and easily finds David's hiding spot. While Candela tries to be invisible, David jokes about Margot's huge house. Margot wants to get back to her real life, but David suggests they don't have to cut off completely. He invites her for a weekend trip to a town he mentioned earlier. Patri is upset because Margot didn't pick her calls during the vacation. She takes out her anger during their game, after which Patri admits that she has feelings for Didier, her kid's tennis coach. She finally admits that Margot was right about her wanting Alberto to cheat because things aren't the same with them, and she likes someone else now. Her sisters are there for her, and Candela even announces that she's leaving to work on a rescue ship in the Mediterranean. Margot receives flowers from David, who introduces her to his other friends that weekend. They all love Margot, who wins a toy and gifts it to them. Christina makes Margot realize that David is the kind of guy who is scared to commit to someone he truly likes just because he feels he deserves something worse. Margot and David start flirting as they dance, and he takes her to a narrow street to make out. They can't resist each other and spend a passionate night together. During breakfast next morning, Margot admits to David and his friends that she's the vice president of the Ortega Group and the head partner in charge of guest services and brand image. She explains how her grandfather started the company. After that, on their way back, David starts acting distant and weird around her. He thinks they should end whatever they have because he's not good enough for her and is intimidated. He also admits that he feels bad about falling in love with her and it not working out. David still thinks they shouldn't stop talking immediately. But Margot isn't comfortable with dragging on something that won't last. She asks him not to contact her at all. They still bid each other a cordial goodbye before she leaves. Soon, Margot breaks up with Filippo for real this time and returns his ring since her heart isn't in it. Candela also leaves for her trip. Margot finally takes charge of her company and stands up to the patriarchy and the chairman, who were trying to protest her presence there. She makes changes to the board and learns that they need someone to head their London office. Patri reminds Margot that she has a great apartment in London. This time, Patri is much happier and kisses Deirdre publicly. Margot carries the dried flowers David gave her to London, where she randomly meets a dog, Buster, on the road. Buster's owner, Baron, takes a liking to Margot and flirts with her. She starts dating Baron and makes a life for herself in London with him. 3 years later, when she's back in Madrid for a few days, she visits David at his new flower shop. She knows about it because she kept in touch with Dami throughout. She gifts David an iPod with all the songs she has added over the years for him. She felt like she needed to see him, but clarifies to him that she's with someone else in London and very happy. She finally gets rid of the flowers he gave her in front of his shop, which is named Come Back Margarita after her. Margot discusses how small choices can change everything and goes back to the day she was about to board her taxi. This time, David stops her and claims he wants to be with her even if the odds are stacked against them. He then officially breaks up with Idoia after making her realize that they were in a toxic relationship. David finally moves out and buys a new apartment after a teary goodbye with Ivan and Dami. Margot keeps visiting him there and they're very happy together. They realize it was the best decision to give their relationship a proper chance. Over time, they move to her apartment in London. David opens up a flower shop in London, where Baron is a random customer and invisible to Margot since she's so happy with David. His flower shop this time is called Fly Margarita, since things are going great with them.